All right, guys, it's Brad with College SportsCast. We are here tonight to do week 2 of our game day pick'ems. What's up, John Hammonds?
What's up, man?
What's going on tonight, man?
Not much.
So you went to a high school football game?
Yeah, I went to my home school. It was 7-7 at halftime. Somerset, not Central. So, pretty evenly matched game tonight. To me, both offenses were struggling until I think late in the first half or second quarter, but they were straightening some things out before halftime. So, should be a fun game second half.
All right. I know you had went to a football game, so
I'm going tomorrow.
Let's start with that and kind of touch on it.
And I'll be at the UK
South Carolina
game tomorrow. So.
Yeah, John's going to the South Carolina UK game tomorrow, so hopefully you can get there to enjoy some of the SEC Nation as well, because they're there as well. So
yeah, your buddy Paul Feinbaum will be there. So
yeah, he had the baseball coach on today. He had the women's basketball coach and Brooks on. So and Georgia Amore was on the Paul Feinbaum show today that I helped cover here at College SportsCast. So it's always exciting to see SEC Nation. A good win tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe College Game Day will be there next week for the Georgia game. You never know.
Maybe so. You never know.
All right. So as we get started here, I do want to throw up our Facebook thing here. So if you are watching us on Facebook, you can help support us by sending stars. So that will help us make money to continue to make content for you guys, and we would appreciate that. You can also subscribe to our page. It's only 99 cents a month, and you can't beat that price. You do get your own subscription page when you subscribe, and I do share things in the subscribers page and try to keep up with that and have some different content for you guys as well. So those are the two ways to help support us right now, and we would appreciate that. All right, so we are here to do our Game Day Pick'em Week 2. I'm not sure if John Roberts is going to get here in time to join us tonight. He had a event that he was going to, said he was going to be rushing back to try to make it. So I don't know for sure if he is going to be here, but I do want to mention that he is a part of this, and I told him if he does come in that he could hop on at any time during the show here. So we may add John Roberts to the show tonight. I'm not real sure. But anyways, let's kind of get things started just a little bit here. I'll start by this. Last week, we picked 11 games. And our week 1 picks, John, looks like this. So our week 1 scoreboard, I was 7-4 in our 11 games. John, you were 6-5, and John Roberts was 4-7. Now, I will say this. John Roberts is the different one here at College SportsCast. He likes to go with the underdogs a lot of times. So sometimes the underdogs don't pull it out, by the spread and that kind of stuff. So, but you got to have something a little different here. So week 1, John, me and you are close. I was 1 game ahead of you last week. I will say this. 2 of the games I missed are 2 games that I said I didn't like even picking, and that was the spread of 21 for Michigan over Fresno State, and they wound up winning by 20. That was one of my losses. And then the other loss was the LSU USC game, 2 of my 4 losses. And I said I didn't want to touch that game. I hated it from the beginning. Yeah. And sure enough, I missed it. And I just didn't have a good, comfortable feeling about that game. So anyways, 2 of my losses of the 4 losses were those 2 games, and I said right here that I didn't even like picking them 2 games. So, it is what it is, but that's how we started. I will keep up with this year, and each week we'll do a cumulative scoreboard here at College SportsCast. Last year I was about 60% in my picks. I led. John was second, I think, and then we had John Roberts was on some, and had a few guys on last year as well. So, but we will keep up with this as the season goes along. So we are now here at week 2, and of course, it starts out, John, with possibly the biggest game of the week. I mean, I feel like it's the biggest game of the week. You've got a top 10 matchup here to start the week off. And I don't know about you, but I kind of like this new setup where, the last 2 weeks, the opening game last week was Georgia Clemson. This week is Texas Michigan. Like, I kind of like the opening game of the week being right there, at noon kickoff. What do you think? Do you like that or not?
I do. I watched a little bit of Michigan and Fresno State last week, and Michigan didn't really impress me that much. They had to get that extra interception to finish the game off, and I thought they kind of looked kind of mediocre on offense.
They're going to need Will Johnson to do something like that again this week, probably.
Michigan, to me, their defense is good enough to keep Texas off the board, I think, for long stretches at times. But they're going to have to move the ball to win this game. They're going to have to score, and they're going to have to make some plays. Their O-line looked okay. The quarterbacks and receivers, to me, were just average at times. I think the Longhorns make a big difference in this game, and I think they win a second straight game, big statement game. And I think they cover this spread, and I think they go in the big house and they win this game. And what they'll be doing, they'll be snapping the longest home winning streak in Ann Arbor. This will be and I'll even go as far as saying this, that if Michigan ain't able to limit their possessions, this could get ugly very quickly. Because Texas has got some playmakers, and they got a really
good receiver. I mean, the biggest concern for me, John, in this game is Texas offense. Back up. Let me back up. My biggest concern in this game is the Michigan offense versus the Texas defense. That's my biggest, their offense, Michigan's offense. I mean, they're starting a former walk-on quarterback, and they're bringing the other guy in, the athletic guy. What's his name? Orgy. They're bringing him in spots. And he was the blue chipper basically, but they're not even starting him. And to be honest with you, he's only in certain packages. And their offense struggled, and Texas defense is fast and can hit hard. Like, really good, I watched them some last week in that opening game. I just feel like Texas has a big advantage when it comes to their defense versus Michigan's offense.
I think they got a big advantage up front offensive line than Michigan does. And like I said, I just think that Michigan's going to have to make some plays offensively. They're going to have to move the football if they want to have a chance in this game, because if they don't, I think what you're going to see, Texas to get up 14-0, 17-0, and that's going to be tough to overcome if their offense can't move the football.
I mean, you got Donovan Edwards in the running game, and I would think you're going to see quite a bit of trying to pound the ball, but I think Texas is going to stop a lot of that. So it's going to come down to these quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I think it's going to come down to the quarterbacks. And to be honest with you, Quinn Ewers is night and day a better quarterback than what Michigan is
Yeah,
starting. And I can't
I
remember
think I trust Quinn Ewers in a game like this than I do on the other side.
Yeah, you got Quinn Ewers on the one side, and he's got Bolden and Golden and Bond,
Yeah.
Isaiah Bond,
Well,
in case y'all caught that.
they got the good tight end. They got the good tight end from Alabama, the transfer from Alabama that's really good too.
Yeah, they just are full of weapons on the outside. Now, I know Michigan has Will Johnson, and
they got Mason Graham too up front, which is
well, I'm talking about on the outside. I mean, Will Johnson's probably one of the best corners in the game, but he can't cover them all. You know what I mean? So, when you got that many weapons, you can't cover them all. The spread here at DraftKings is -7 tonight. And I'm going to be honest with you. As tough a place as it is to go into the big house and win, like you said, it could snap the longest home win streak for them. I just think this Texas team is that good. They have that kind of talent across the ball on both sides. And I'm taking Texas in the 7 points. I really think they're going to cover this.
Yeah, I do too.
All right. There are 2 noon games here that are really good. The next one is an SEC school as well. We got Arkansas going to Stillwater and playing Oklahoma State. Now, this spread has been up and down. I looked at it earlier. It was at 9.5. About 2 days ago, it was like at 6.5. So it has been betting up. So it was 9.5 earlier. That's what we're going to go with here, John. So what about the Cowboys at home against the Razorbacks?
Listen, Oklahoma State to me is really, really good. They're deep, experienced. They got a really good quarterback in Alan Bowman. They'll be playing at home. You got to like what you've seen from Arkansas last week. They 10 possessions, 10 touchdowns to start the year. If you would have said that last year, you would have thought, well, it's total a game changer. Well, from getting Bobby Petrino in there to last year. And I think that was a big difference in their offensive game and their style of play that they run. But for me, I think it's still a little too bold to pick this game in Arkansas's favor. They're going to have to put 8 men in the box and stop their running game. If to be fair, if they have a chance to win this game and probably dare Oklahoma State to throw the football. Because if they put the 8 guys in the box, I think they can do some things and stop Ollie Gordon, but you're going to have to stop the passing attack of Oklahoma State.
You got Bobby Petrino that, like you was talking about, they put up a lot of points last week, 70, as a matter of fact. But they played a very small school, and they're going way up in competition in Stillwater in this game. Do you think Arkansas is going to put up some offense here in this game?
I think they can.
Taylor Green looked good last week.
I think they'll move the football on them. I just don't think it's going to be enough to be able to win Stillwater. Stillwater is a tough environment to play in, and I just think Oklahoma State is going to make a statement here. But I think Arkansas will cover the 9.5.
So you're picking the Razorbacks to cover the 9.5.
Yeah, the Razorbacks.
Okay.
Yeah.
In this game, you're talking about Bowman. He's in year 7 of college football. You're talking about experience. There's not many quarterbacks in the country that has the experience of Alan Bowman. So when you look at that side of the ball, it's definitely going to be, when you look at Oklahoma State offense versus Arkansas defense. I really think it's going to be an advantage to Oklahoma State there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it's probably going to be kind of even when you look at the other way around with Arkansas offense and Oklahoma State defense. So this one, the spread is kind of getting me. I think Oklahoma State is going to win this game. The 9.5 points, I'm just not real confident in, to be honest with you. But I think I'm leaning towards taking Oklahoma State in the points in this game at home. I'm not yet trusting what we saw last week with Arkansas. I know they put up a lot of points last week, and they do have Bobby Petrino. Taylor Green looked really well, looked good last week, but they're doing a step up here, and I'm just not quite trusting Arkansas just yet. I'm not saying if they put up a good showing here that I won't next week or from the rest of the season. So here, week 2, I think I'm going to take Oklahoma State and lay the 9.5 points. All right. Then, John, we are going to move on to Louisiana game here. Kansas State is going to Tulane, and I find this game a little interesting. They're taking on the Green Wave at home, and Kansas State's an 8.5-point favorite. Now, this is a spread that's also moved. It was 10 earlier in the week. It's actually come down a little bit in favor of Tulane. It's an 8.5 this evening, about 6 o'clock. So that's what we're going to go with here. Tulane is coached by our boy John Summerall. He got the first big win last week. Do you give them a chance here at home?
I think there's always that chance, but I think I'm going to roll with Kansas State in this game. I think they're expecting a really big year in Manhattan. They're expecting really to win the Big 12 this year. And I think this is one of those games that they need to win and they need to take care of business. And I think this will be close for 3 quarters. But I think towards the end that Kansas State will pull out all the stops and win the game. And I think they cover that 8.5 spread. I think that's about right for a power 4 game and a group of 5 game. I think that's about the point spread's about the right amount.
I'm going to be honest with you, John. When I saw 10 points earlier in the week, I was kind of leaning Tulane here at home.
Yeah, I was
kind of leaning Tulane here at home at 10 points. I think the Kansas State Wildcats are probably the better team here. I do fully believe in John Summerall and what he can do. I think this team is going to be a tough game here at home for Tulane, for the Wildcats. I do not think this is going to be a blowout by any means. So I really was kind of leaning when I saw it at 10. When it's coming down here, it gets a little more tough to pick Tulane in this game, I think, as it comes down. At this point, it'd have to be 8 or less to win this. I think I'm going to take Kansas State on this side of the ball, for this game. I really wanted to take Tulane in this game, but it's hard to do at 8.5. I think so. If I was betting this one, I think I would bet Kansas State in 8.5. So I think that's what we'll stick with. All right, John, you're going to the game tomorrow. It's down at 6 o'clock my time tonight. It was down to 8 on DraftKings. South Carolina at Kentucky, 8-point spread here for the Wildcats. It's at home. And like I said, John, you're going to the game tomorrow. What do you think here, South Carolina coming to Kroger Field, Commonwealth Stadium?
There's some things there that you had to like about what Kentucky did, and then there were some things, for South Carolina that they did last week where they showed off a really good pass rush and a defense that can be really good. If Lenore Sellers could play a little bit better, I think, and get some help, I think South Carolina can stay around this game. But it's going to be tough, and I said it this afternoon. I was speaking to somebody about Kentucky. You can struggle against ODU and have those moments where you don't really look that great, but you're going to have to play better against a better front four in Kentucky because you're going from ODU to a legit front four in the SEC. And I like this line. I think it's about right. There were a lot of miscues last week offensively for South Carolina. Their route running, especially at the quarterback position. However, I think the defense did force 4 turnovers, but they're going up against a better quarterback this week in Brock Vandagriff. And we'll find out in the next 2 weeks what Brock Vandagriff has to bring to the table. South Carolina plays Kentucky this week. Then Kentucky comes Georgia comes calling next week. But I think Kentucky covers this spread, this 8 spread. I don't think South Carolina's going to be able to have enough offense to win this football game.
So, this is a game that if you are building a program, this is a game that you must win. That's what I will say. If you're building a program, you cannot let a team that's likely going to finish in the bottom half of the SEC come into your home and get a win. I think South Carolina did not look great last week offensively. I know that there has been a little bit of buzz that they played, pretty decent on defense. I question that. I mean, it was against ODU. No offense to Old Dominion, but I mean, they're not a top-notch college football program. So, some of the buzz that says that South Carolina played a pretty good defensive game last week, I kind of question that. I really do. I mean, against exactly what? They played good defense against what?
Well,
is my question.
And I think too, another thing to keep in mind is South Carolina's going to have to need a few more explosive plays, I think, to win this game. They're not going to be able to just go and they're not going to be able to run the ball like they want. Now, they'll get some run draws and they'll get some screens and they'll make some yardage, but they're going to have to throw the ball down the field and make some plays to at least have a shot to win this game, I think.
I mean, I think you hit on something with the turnovers. They forced 4 turnovers last week against Old Dominion. I will say this stat real quick for you guys. The last 3 meetings between South Carolina and Kentucky, the turnover margin forced is South Carolina has forced 8 turnovers and Kentucky has only forced 2 in the last 3 meetings. That cannot continue tomorrow if Kentucky is going to not only win this game, but comfortably cover. Kentucky, we didn't get to see even a full game last week. It was late at night and delays and over 2 hours and 20-minute delay to start the game. They started the second half and barely got in one drive. And they basically had another delay, called the game late. So we really didn't see everything that Kentucky has to offer last week.
And 2, they was playing Southern Miss, which most people project to be one of the worst teams in the Power 5 in the group of 5. So
they both played Sun Belt teams last week.
Yeah. So you're not really going to gain that much. But I felt like I seen more struggles out of South Carolina than I did Kentucky, and that concerns me going into this game.
I mean, Sellers can't be 10 of 23 for whatever, a buck 12 or whatever he had.
He just simply can't do that against a pretty good front four and secondary Kentucky's got, because Kentucky is going to take it up a notch compared to what ODU.
And John, let's not hide the fact that their offensive line still doesn't look good, even against ODU. Their offensive line did not look good. So if Kentucky's defensive line can do their job, and defensive, let's call front seven, if they can do their job, Sellers should be running for his life. Now, I'm not saying he can't run. He can, and he might be able to get to the end zone. But, you know, he ought to be being chased pretty heavily with this front seven of Kentucky's defense. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you guys. I think this should be a lopsided game. I really do. I don't see this as a real close game. I'm in the 2 touchdown range here, you know, on this game. To be honest with you, I really don't believe that South Carolina's offense should be able to score over 14 points. 17 max, but I really don't feel like they should be able to score over about 14 points.
For me,
Kentucky's defense.
I think it should be at least a 35-17 type score, like at most.
That's where I am, somewhere in that range.
Because if you only beat South Carolina, say 28-20, 28-17, and you're barely beat this team, then that's going to cause for concerns going down the road against other teams.
I feel like Kentucky has just a ton better overall team. You look at defense, offensive line, even offense. I mean, you can even look at the offensive line, which everybody thinks Kentucky is a negative. But if you compare our offensive line to theirs, I think ours is night and day different, better.
Well, but South Carolina does have a really good player in Dylan Stewart on the defensive line, and they got a really good receiver in Nick Harbor that's really, really fast.
And they have a couple of nice edge pieces, and they might make our tackles have to work really hard this week. So, you know, tomorrow. Yeah. But I'm taking Kentucky to cover this spread fairly easily, to be honest with you. I mean, I just think this game is I was comfortable at the 10, and it's at 8. So I'm taking the Wildcats here. All right. The next game we're going to get to is a rivalry game, and it is Iowa State at Iowa. This spread has been 2.5 most week. I have seen it at 3. It was 2.5 again today. This is at Iowa. The Hawkeyes put up 40. Did y'all catch that last week? They put up 40 points in a game last week. Now, I know it was against an FCS opponent, but this Iowa State team, I don't feel like is all that great. I think they're going to be near the bottom, you know, the bottom half at least in the Big 12. What do you think, John?
I actually think they're going to be better than people think. You know, this is probably their best team probably since 2020. But this is an intriguing matchup just because it's a rivalry game. Iowa's on this series. They've won 7 out of the last 8. And it's in Iowa, which if this was in Ames, I would probably pick Iowa State. But I just think they have the better quarterback and more proven offensive attack. And I think, you know, you got to look at their elite defense. Their defense has always been pretty good. And I think that's why I have a hard time picking against Iowa in this game. I think they'll just do enough to win this game. And I think they cover the 2.5 points.
I'm going to be honest with you guys, and I'm going to throw this out here. I think this is the lock of the week.
Yeah, I think it is too. And
out of all these games, Out of all these games, I feel like this is an absolute lock at home. Iowa covers this 2.5 over Iowa State. I would be shocked, really, if it doesn't happen.
Well, I think too, though, Brad,
What's that?
they found things offensively with Cade McNamara at quarterback, and I think offensively they're a little bit better this year. And I think there's some encouraging signs there. You know, everybody laughs about the 40 points last week, but that's not normal around Iowa. I mean,
they also gave up 0. So I mean, it was 40-0.
Well, that's a big deal. So I think this is the lock of the week. And I think Iowa wins this game. Now, if this game's like I said, if this game was in Ames, I would probably pick the Cyclones. But it's in Iowa, and that's a tough place to play with the defense that they got. So,
I fully believe that this Hawkeyes team could challenge to be 10-2.
Yeah.
And then if they are, we're going to find out if a pretty good Big Ten team at 10-2 makes the college football playoff.
Well, because they have a really favorable schedule too.
They do. I really think that this Iowa team could possibly challenge to be in the mix down the stretch. I really do.
Yeah, I do.
Now I've said all of this. Cade McNamara has to stay healthy. And tomorrow, if he gets hurt in the first quarter, then my lock goes out the window because I'm doing all this with the assumption that Cade's going to stay healthy and they're going to have a great season this year, I feel like, if he does. So I'm taking Iowa and the 2.5, laying the 2.5. So far, I'm not taking any underdogs. I just noticed. All right, we are going to move on to California at Auburn. Auburn it's been being 13.5. I have seen it all the way up that high, around 13. But today it was at 11.5. So what do you think here at Jordan-Hare, California coming to Auburn?
I like Auburn in 11.5. I just, California has improved, especially defensively, but I think they're going up against some really good playmakers. And Cam Coleman really showed out last week for Auburn. Lambert Smith from Penn State, that's another guy that they got in the transfer portal. Then they got Jaquez Hunter, the running back. He had a really good game last week.
You think Peyton Thorne can keep up that pace?
And I think he can play better coming up. I think Auburn's got a really good chance to make some noise in the SEC. I've said it. I even told you during the summer that Auburn was one of my teams to watch all season because I think this is the first year in a long, long time that Auburn's had the type of playmakers that they've had at the offensive skill position level. And I think that they take care of business Saturday in Jordan-Hare. And I think California is going to be better. They're going to be improved, especially moving from the Pac-12 to the ACC. But I think Saturday night they run into a really good Auburn team.
So Auburn went out to California last year, and they snuck out a win in California last year.
Yeah, but this is
on the road.
It's a totally different Auburn team, I think.
It is, but I'm sure California is a different team as well. I'm just kind of throwing that out there.
Especially
so
I think
California has some really, really good linebackers. They do. I mean, they have a set of linebackers that could challenge to be one of the best group of linebackers in the ACC. So that's going to be an intriguing matchup going against Auburn's new offense here, with Hugh Freeze, Cam Coleman, and the ones that you just mentioned. When you look at Auburn's offense versus California's defense, I think that's where the game is going to be won. Because if California can stymie their offense a little bit, then I think California has a chance to cover the spread. But
Well,
if Auburn,
they have a fighting chance in the fourth quarter.
but if Auburn wins that battle more times than not, then I think Auburn covers this spread and wins this game by 2 or 3 touchdowns, 14, 17 points, something like that. So, I think that's going to be the key here in this game is the Auburn offense versus the California defense, because offensively, I think California is not nearly as good as Auburn is.
Mm-hmm.
But now defensively, I think they're close to the same level here as, Auburn's got a pretty good defense as well. But I think California's right up there with them on the defensive side.
Yeah, I think this game will be pretty close early. I just think more towards the second half, Auburn will have just the better playmakers to make things happen and finish this game off.
I'll be honest with you, this is another game when it was 13.5. I was kind of leaning, maybe taking the dangerous pick here and taking California. But with it being down at 11.5, I think I'm going to take Auburn at home here to cover this spread. I'm like I said, I'm going with all the favorites, I think. So, all right. With that said,
especially this week, because there's a lot of games. This is not one of the biggest week slates of the year. You got to, because Kentucky, like we talked about, they're the only SEC game going with South Carolina. So a lot of these are non-conference games this week.
Right. All right. With that said, guys, I am going to take this off and we're going to do just a short little break here. I'm going to talk about us being on the Real Fresh channel and WSBN TV channel 30. So download the BoxCast app and look for World Sports Broadcast Network. You can find us on Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, and like I said, we are on the Real Fresh channel, Howie Fresh. He is doing stuff on Facebook. If you're watching us on Facebook, he has a pro sports show. They do game picks for the NFL each week on Tuesday nights right now during the NFL season. Check out the Fresh Takes Sports Podcast. You will love their game picks. But here is Howie Fresh to talk a little bit more about his channel.
You need new entertainment. You need full-length content. You need the Real Fresh channel. Hey, I'm Howie Fresh from the Real Fresh channel. Subscribe today on YouTube. We have new content. We are a network of podcasters putting out new stuff every single day. Whether you need sports, pro or college, whether you need comedies, whether you need pop culture, whether you need wrestling. We've got so much content on there. Gaming. Check it out. Live, not live. We've got it all. The Real Fresh channel. Subscribe today.
All right. That was Howie. Check him and Big Luke out. They do a great job, don't they, John?
Yeah, they do a really good job.
You will love their picks for the NFL. They were 67% correct, both of them last year, on almost 300 picks throughout the entire season. They got 67% of their picks right. So check them out. The Fresh Takes Sports Podcast. It is now being played on College SportsCast on Facebook, or subscribe to their channel, YouTube channel, at the Real Fresh channel as well. So, all right, we're going to get back to our picks. The next game is a little bit off the radar, but I like this game, and I think this is a big-time game for the group of 5. And here at College SportsCast this season, we are going to try each week to have a little bit of talk about the group 5. We've already talked about Tulane being at home against Kansas State. This is a big game. You got UTSA at Texas State.
Mm-hmm.
I think both of these teams with a big win here, could be a team to talk about later in the year for a college football playoff spot, possibly. Texas State for sure. They're a 1.5 point favorite at home, John. What do you think in this game?
I think, UTSA last week, they pressured the Kennesaw State quarterback a lot last week. They sacked him 3 times. Texas State ran the ball really good in their last game, but I don't think they are not going to be able to have as much success against the Roadrunners. They gave up 1.3 yards per carry in their first game, and they're going to try to keep them in check. I expect him to go after McLeod and try to force him into some mistakes. I'm going to go with UTSA to cover this spread. I like UTSA in this game, but I wouldn't be shocked if Texas State won this game either. These are 2 teams that I thought, in my opinion, all summer was going to be the top 2 teams in the group of 5 to at least make a shot or a run at the college football 12-team playoff. And I still do. I think in the winner of this one will get an upper hand in that regard. But give me UTSA, and I think they cover the 2.5.
So I think Texas State has a good chance in the Sun Belt to come out of the Sun Belt. Now, I fully think that the winner of the Sun Belt has to be 11-1 to probably be the highest ranked. I just don't think 10-2 out of the Sun Belt will probably get them to be the highest ranked champion. So I think they really do need to be 11-1. With saying that, the Sun Belt has a few good teams, but I think this Texas State team has a really good shot of doing that if they can win this game against the Roadrunners at home, where they are 1.5-point favorite. I'm going to go against you here, and I'm going to take Texas State at home in this game. I think the being at home is at least worth a 2 or 3 point advantage. So, I think I'm going to go with the home team here with Texas State in this game. All right. Then we're going to get to Kansas versus Illinois. This is at Illinois. Kansas has been a 5.5-point favorite, but this evening when I looked at it, it was down to 4.5. What do you think in this game? The Jayhawks going to Champaign, and we're not talking basketball. You're muted, man.
I think this game for me is going to be a lot of fun, back and forth.
Brad Underwood better get his boys going. Sorry.
I still think there's some struggles up front for Illinois. And I'm not.
Come on, John. That was funny.
It was. And I'm not really impressed with their passing game, to be honest. I just think when they're going to get into that position where they're going to have to throw the football, and I think Kansas will put them away. Jalen Daniels is probably one of the early candidates for a high. Well, not he's a sleeper Heisman pick. I think.
I think he could be the Big 12 player of the year.
I think he can too. And even though this is at home, I still think I'm going to roll with the Jayhawks and the 4.5-point spread, and I think they cover it. I just think Kansas has too much offense, and I just don't think Illinois will be able to keep up for 4 quarters.
Listen, I really like Jalen Daniels. He is. If you see him play when he's healthy, he's dynamic. He's dynamic with the ball. He's dynamic throwing it.
He's very deadly in play action.
I'm telling you, he is very, very dynamic with the ball. Even in his throws, they are tight and just on-line target. On the run, a lot of times, he's dynamic with his feet. The only problem I have is he has a hard time staying healthy. Now, he got through a week. Can he stay healthy against a team at home that's probably going to try to wear him out physically?
Yeah. Because Brett Bielema's teams They're always real physical and they play really
Absolutely. This is going to be a physical game for Jalen Daniels.
But I think, Kansas offensively just has much more in the tank than Illinois does. And I trust Kansas more in a shootout than I do Illinois because I just don't think Illinois will be able to keep up offensively if they get into
There's no Jason Bean here. So, the backup that's come in and saved Daniels for the last 2 years.
But I will say
Bean's gone.
Kansas's defense has improved, but I think they'll get enough stops to where they'll make Illinois have to rush to try to get back in the game, and I think that's just going to be too much for Illinois to do. And I think they ultimately win this game.
I'm going to go with you here, and I'm going to take Kansas and lay the 4.5. I feel like Kansas just has that much better of a team. I really do. I'm not big on this Illinois team. However, in Champaign at home, they do play physical ball, and that does kind of worry me with Daniels.
Yeah,
just to be honest.
Up front, they like to get after you in the football, and I just think for about 2 or 3 quarters, this could be a very close game. But I think Kansas wears them down in the end. Though they've got better quarterback play, I think.
Yeah, I agree. As long as Daniel stays healthy. All right, this is one of the big games. There's a few big games here on the night schedule here on for tomorrow night, for Saturday night. So this one is in Charlotte. This is a neutral site game here. Tennessee takes on the Wolfpack, NC State. So, like I said, this game is in Charlotte. It's still in North Carolina. But it is a neutral site game. The Vols this evening was an 8.5-point favorite in this game over the Wolfpack. This is a good game here. You got SEC versus ACC, and I think NC State, if you guys don't know Concepcion, I mean, he is a dynamic receiver. John, I know you do. What do you think about this game?
I like Tennessee in this game, and I tell you why. Tennessee come out of the gate really strong last week. They absolutely blitzed Chattanooga right out of the gate, up 24-0 before you could even blink. And NC State struggled with Western Carolina. They gave up 286 yards, and that's the quarterback for Western Carolina. You're going up against maybe one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the SEC. I call him Nico because I can't pronounce – I butcher his last name, so I just say Nico. They could be in for a long night if –
I got to –
if they're
Never
playing,
mind.
if they
Never
play,
mind.
If they play,
I'm going to hold that. I'm going to hold that one for later in the season.
Okay. They could be in for a really long night against Tennessee if they don't play no better than they did a week ago against Western Carolina. Tennessee's not going to go quietly. I think this might be the best Tennessee team since Hendon Hooker. I think they got a really good offense. I think their defense has improved as well. And NC State might want to play some defense, and they might want to score the ball because if they don't, this game could get really bad quickly. And I'm talking –
Well, I'll say this. I mean, NC State is over the last several years with their coach. I mean, they usually play pretty good defense.
They do. But this is a totally different offense they're going up against than they are Western Carolina. Western Carolina is – I get it. They're in the SoCon, but at the same time, you're going up against –
Well, they both played SoCon teams.
They did.
Tennessee played Chattanooga. NC State played Western Carolina. They're both in the SoCon, and they're both like towards the top of the SoCon. So
they are, and one Tennessee, with one, Tennessee, and the other one struggled.
Yeah.
So
right, Tennessee killed Chattanooga, and the Wolfpack took the fourth quarter to extend their lead and win that game.
I'm
against Western Carolina.
I'm going to do this. Give me the 8.5.
The Catamounts.
I just think
Western
Tennessee.
Carolina Catamounts.
I just think Tennessee's that much better than NC State. I just do. I think they're that much better offensively.
So this is a game, of course, as a fan, and you guys know me, this is a game that I'm going to struggle in here. I really think this NC State team could challenge in the ACC. Like, Concepcion is a fantastic receiver. He had 3 TDs last week. Tennessee better be ready. They have some weapons. They're going to challenge that Tennessee defense. Now, offensively, I will give you that Tennessee is a juggernaut, and they are tough to defend. They are quick. They are deep. Everything they do.
They got Squirrel White. They got Brew McCoy. They got the Brazil kid from Tulane.
Only in Tennessee do you have a guy with the name Squirrel.
And then that ain't even counting what they got
saying.
on the running back position. They got Dylan Sampson that, I think they've had Josh Heupel teams have had some really good 1,000-yard rushers when he's had good running backs. And I'm going to tell you, man, this Tennessee team is really, really good. And NC State better
offensively, I will give you that. My thing is, I've been talking about it all night long. What's the key matchup here? I think that is the key matchup. The key matchup in the game is going to be Tennessee's offense versus NC State's defense. Is there any way or shape or form that NC State on the defensive side of the ball can slow down this dynamic Tennessee offense? Because if they can, I think NC State has the offense to put some points up on the board against this Tennessee defense.
So will it be enough, though? That's the thing. They're going to have to.
I'm just saying, if they can stymie that offense, I think they have the weapons on offense to put up some points on them. However, I'm leaning towards that Tennessee on the offense has a lot better game than NC State defense. And for that reason I think I'm going to take Tennessee and the points in this game. And this is a game, if you guys know me, this is a game that I really wanted to find a way to take NC State. But I just can't, y'all. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Justin.
I just can't, man.
Justin Justin
and I really like this NC State team, and I really think that they have a chance to win the ACC. I really do.
I just don't think they're going to be able to stop Tennessee's plethora of receivers. Tennessee's got a really good receiving corps.
They do. I'll give them that. All right, this is another big game Saturday night on the docket here. And for all of you guys who didn't grow up in the 80s and 90s, this was a huge, huge rivalry game when I was growing up. It's kind of a really good game to see. I enjoyed it last year. I'm glad they're doing a return game here. I would love to see this rivalry continue, especially as long as Dion is there and Colorado has a good or decent team, good team. You got 2 coaches in their second year. This is at Nebraska. They're a 6.5-point favorite here. It's been 7 most of the week, but it was 6.5 tonight when I looked. So that's what I put, John. Mm-hmm. What do you think here against a really improved Nebraska team?
Love Colorado or hate them. They're always going to find the headlines because of Deion Sanders. That's just facts. The biggest difference in this game, I think, is going to be up front. Nebraska, I think, is going to be able to, push around Colorado at the line. Shadur puts up a lot of great numbers. but I don't think he's going to be able to match what Dylan Raiola is going to be able to do this weekend. Nobody really probably watched the UTEP game. I watched a little bit of it, and he resembles Patrick Mahomes. And I know everybody says, well, he looks like him, but the way he plays, just the way
I think he tries to impersonate him. Literally, I really do.
They did what they needed to do. Colorado last week, they was losing at half to North Dakota State. They're not going to be able to get by with that this week if they're behind at the half in Nebraska. This will be a raucous crowd. It's a 7:30 kick. It's on NBC. All eyes will be on. I'm
so looking forward to this game tomorrow night, and I am not a massive Deion and Colorado fan, so a lot of people would think that because I'm looking forward to it that maybe that I am, but I grew up watching these games. Like they were big time games in the late 80s and early 90s. And there were a few years there where Colorado, I mean, most people don't remember, but 1990, they had a share of the national title in 1990.
And they had a guy by the name of Rashawn Salam.
Rashawn Salam, won the Heisman
Trophy.
Yep.
And they had a quarterback named Cordell Stewart. If everybody don't remember him,
Cordell Stewart. Yep. They did. Really, and I'm telling you, this was a big time rivalry. I'm actually looking forward to this game, getting back and seeing this game played tomorrow night. You got Shadur Sanders, and and I'm gonna be honest with you, Dylan Raiola is a great quarterback as well. He looked great as a freshman. Like you said, he kind of impersonates Patrick Mahomes. He even wears a red 15. I mean, last week he did on the at home. It's going to be a great game. However, I still think Travis Hunter's the best player on the field.
I do. I think he is, but I got to look at it like this. Colorado lost 6 of their last games last year, right? And most of the same skill players are back from that same team. And to me, I don't think they've improved defensively at all, especially at the line.
Offensive line worries me tomorrow.
Their offensive line worries me a little bit because Nebraska likes to be physical.
They do.
And Nebraska has a really good defense in the secondary. And to say this, I take Nebraska to win this game and they cover this spread. All eyes to me will be on Lincoln tomorrow night. Well, if you're a Tennessee fan, it'll be on
Tennessee, NC, and Colorado, Nebraska.
The times are at the same time. But to me, I think this game's a little bit better game in terms of style and pizzazz, rivalry. I think it's just a bigger game.
If you grew up in the late 80s and 90s, I think you're going to want to tune into this game.
Yeah, and I think Nebraska, and to look at going forward, they have a chance to be 7-0 going to Ohio State.
They could be, but they got to get this one at home.
They got to win this
big game.
That's what I'm saying. And what
Matt Rule is doing a fantastic job building a program out there and trying to get Nebraska back on the map.
And here's the thing:
Deion is doing a good job at Colorado. I mean, they won one ball game, not too long ago.
And I say this about the whole Patrick Mahomes thing. What I meant about that was like casual fans really only know him because he resembles Patrick Mahomes. And, the hype is warranted. He was the top quarterback coming into high school this year, out of high school. And he does not look like a freshman at all.
He committed to Georgia and backed out and stayed at home. He's from Nebraska.
And I'm going to say this. If they win this game tomorrow night in Nebraska, there's going to be a lot of hype in Lincoln that hasn't been there in a long, long time. And
Nebraska could actually be in the conversations towards the end of the year.
Yep.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I'm not saying for sure they're going to get there.
And that ain't been the case in quite a while.
Yeah. I'm going to go with you here. I'm taking Nebraska at home by more than a touchdown. The 6.5 kind of locks it in for me. If this was 10 or something, I would kind of be a little shaky on it. But 6.5, I feel like they are going to win this game by a touchdown or more tomorrow night in Lincoln. The crowd is going to be raucous. I mean, they ain't had a game like this that meant this much to them in a long time in Lincoln. So they're going to be ready for it. All right. Going to move on to Boise State plays at Oregon. Last night, it was a 21-point favorite. Tonight, when I looked at it, it was 19. So I've put it at 19. 21 last night seemed very high to me. 19 still seems a little high. But this Boise State team is offensively, they're for real. And Oregon didn't look great. Let's be honest. What gives here this week, Boise State at Oregon?
I think, to me, this is a really big spread for how both teams looked last week. Oregon struggled to win against Idaho. It was just a really big struggle. And Boise State took care of business. Ashton Jeanty was just out of this world. Looked really good running the ball. I mean, he's the real deal, Heisman candidate. Given how shaky I think Boise looked on the defensive end, I think it's going to be difficult to imagine they don't fall back this week. They failed to cover the spread last week, and the last time they played a Big Ten team, I think that was where they failed to cover the spread, and that was the last time they played a Big Ten. The last time they failed to cover a spread against a Pac-12 team. But I just think that Oregon will be much improved this week, and it's a little bit different setup this week than it was last week. It's not so much Georgia Southern now. They got Oregon this week, and it's going to be a tougher test up front, and I think Oregon will be a bounce-back candidate this week. But I don't think they cover this spread, Oregon. I think Boise State will cover this spread. I think it's too high for my liking. I think Oregon does win this game, but I think it's a little bit high for my liking.
Yeah, here's my thing. I'm betting with all I have that Dan Lanning was not a happy camper, and it probably has not been very kind to his players this week to get them ready for this game. I just don't see this Oregon team coming out and being nearly as sluggish as they were last week. I mean, it was a 17-14 game in the fourth quarter, and they won 24-14 against Idaho, which now you look at the offensive numbers, and Dylan Gabriel had, he was like 41 of 49 and 380 yards and 2 touchdowns. And you look at the offensive numbers and you think, how in the world was that game that close? Now, you look at the offensive numbers on the other side of the ball against Boise State, and you're just like, wow. Ashton Jeanty, guys, if you don't know the name, the dude is a Heisman candidate, running back for Boise State. He had 20 carries last week, had 267 yards, and 6 TDs in one game, including a 77-yarder and a 75-yarder in one game last week. On top of that, he had a couple of 30-some yarders. You talking about explosive plays This guy can break them at any time. And Oregon better come ready to play. I know this is at home, and everybody's going to think Oregon should definitely win this game. But, John, I'm kind of with you. Boise State offensively, they could definitely keep this within the points. I haven't done it all night. So I think I'm going to take the underdog and take the points here.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Instead of give the points.
I'll say this: if Oregon plays like they did last week, like struggle like with Idaho, like they did, do that with Boise State, this could get interesting really quick.
It could be dangerous. It could be dangerous, honestly, because this now Boise's defense worries me, but but Oregon's offense didn't look dynamic last week. So which one looks better, tomorrow night? Because this is a late game tomorrow night. So
it was to me it was very interesting to see the box score. They only won by 10, but they doubled the yardage. They kept the ball.
I mean, you look at the offensive numbers and you think, okay, the offensive numbers weren't bad at all. They were good.
See, here's the thing. Boise State can run and throw the ball, which probably might leave Oregon off balance. But I think Oregon's going to be more efficient in this game. And I think the home crowd will make the difference in this game. And I think
I'll tell y'all one thing, though. If Ashton Jeanty can get 3 or 4 touchdowns against Oregon tomorrow night, he's going to be a contender for the Heisman Trophy. And he's a running back. He's not a quarterback. And I get so tired of seeing the quarterbacks control this thing. I'm actually pulling for the guy. Ashton Jeanty is the real deal.
Yeah, and I think if Oregon can finish drives that they didn't do a week ago, I think they win this game. But they're going to have to sustain some
And the
drives.
one up above that, I feel like Travis Hunter should be in that conversation too.
Yeah, he's another one. I think Dylan Gabriel.
All right. The last game of the week that we're going to talk about, I might throw in a couple of quick bonuses here real quick, but the last one is Mississippi State. That's supposed to say at Arizona State tomorrow night. It is a late game tomorrow night. Arizona State is a 5-point favorite at home. Mississippi State, while playing a small opponent, looked pretty good last week. Do they have a chance here at, going on the road to Arizona State, to the Sun Devils here? Do you think they have a chance going in and getting a win or covering the spread?
I think this might be one of the better games of the weekend. And even though it's a late game, because a lot of people don't, stay up that late anymore. I mean, party after dark, they call it. Football after dark. Arizona State.
I don't even think this one starts till like, what is it, 10 o'clock or 10:30 or 10 o'clock or something?
Like that, yeah. Arizona had a lot of transfers. They had a lot of pieces moved Arizona State. I mean, I don't anticipate Mississippi State getting enough push up front to slow down this offense that they have. Mississippi State lacks a lot of experienced veterans on its defense, which I think in a road game against a team like Arizona State, who outplayed Wyoming from start to finish, they held Wyoming to just over 100 total yards on offense and scoring all of his points on offense for the first 3 quarters. And I think that they'll do this same thing.
And Wyoming's been a pretty good football school the last 3 or 4 years.
And they have. I feel like Arizona State was disrespected to me when they was picked to finish last in the Pac-12 and in the Big 12. I'm sorry, not the Pac-12.
Well, they're in a second. Is this a second year head coach? I think
second year, I believe.
I believe this is his second year. I believe their head coach.
This game is projected to be close. I think it's what 6.5, 5. It was 6.5 to start.
It was 5 this evening when I looked.
But I'll say this: Jeff Lebby is adding a new dynamic to this offense. Blake Shapen is taking over. He's a transfer from Baylor. He played really well last week. They got the UTEP transfer. They got the Louisville transfer, Kevin Coleman. The ground game needs to improve, I think, which will be, Kevon Lee. He's from Penn State, the transfer. Then they got David Booth. The whole offensive line was remodeled. 4 transfers are starting this year. So it's a whole new group for Mississippi State. And at the same time, I think, too, still they're young and there's a lot of new moving pieces. And I think they're going to struggle in their first road game of the year against a Power 4 opponent. But I think Arizona State covers this spread. But I do think this is one of the better games of the night. And I think everybody is underestimating what Mississippi State can do because I think this is a better team than people think. A lot of people thought they would struggle with Eastern Kentucky last week. And they just went out.
And Mississippi State, I mean, they have a brand new, basically everything. Okay,
it's just
like
all over pass rush, defense, veterans.
they went out transfer portal, brand new coach. I mean, and when I say new coach, he's never been a head coach. Levy had, So I mean, they have a brand new everything. They went out, put up 35 points. Now, albeit it was against Eastern Kentucky last week, but, put up a good showing, in his first game. I will agree with you, going to Arizona State here away, second game of the year, puts them in a tough spot. I don't think that this Mississippi State team is going to be very good and have a very good record by the end of the year. But I will say this. If they're going to get to 4 or 5 wins,
this would be a good one to do.
This would be a good game to get if you're going to get there, and show something this year.
Because I think soon, a couple of weeks, maybe next week, I can't remember. They got Florida coming to town, which
they do.
Florida's
they
not
do,
really
and that's another game that they, I think this game, the Florida game, I mean, they've got a few games here early against, some power conference teams that if they could find a way to sneak out a win or two, I mean, maybe they could get to 5 wins or something this year on this schedule, in his first year, sneak a 6, but I doubt it. But I mean, maybe they could get to 5 wins somehow. If they can't win a game like this against the Sun Devils and beat a Florida at home in a couple of weeks, it's going to be a tough season for Mississippi State this year.
I think in Big Florida, it probably changes their outlook on the bowl schedule. So,
in this game, I agree with you, John. I mean, Arizona State kind of put it to Wyoming last week. I
get Wyoming's probably down, but to beat them like that shows me that.
But Wyoming's a better team than Eastern Kentucky. Let's just be honest.
Arizona State's a lot more improved than they was a year ago.
And going out there, they'll have a rowdy crowd ready. They love Arizona State. If you know anything about the Pac-12 after dark, they absolutely go crazy out there for these games, these late games. They have a great crowd out there for it. So it'll be a rowdy place for Mississippi State to go into. I'm going to take Arizona State and lay the points in this game as well. So we didn't go different too many times this week, only a couple of times, I think. So our records should be close this coming week. All right, real quick. I did this last week. I got a couple of bonuses. I put Alabama at home against UCF. They are a 31-point favorite. Do they cover, yes or no?
Yes.
You think Alabama will cover against South Florida? All right.
I think this Alabama team has a chance to be special.
All right. Then the second bonus that I snuck in here on you is App State at Clemson. Clemson is a 16.5-point favorite at home. Death Valley here for them. Do the Tigers cover 16.5 points at home against a tough App State team?
I'm going to take the points with App State. I mean, I get it's at Death Valley, but to me, Clemson has a lot of issues offensively, and this is a really good App State team. And
App State and Texas State, which we talked about up above, are the two teams that I think could possibly come out of the Sun Belt as a champion.
I'm going to give you a name that most people have not heard of, but they'll hear about him soon. Joey Aguilar plays for App State. Really good quarterback. He's liable to give Clemson some fits tomorrow. Now, will that be where they pull the upset? I doubt it. But Clemson's got some struggles offensively, and if they don't get things straightened out, could be a 7-win season for the Tigers.
I mean, I think Clemson's winning. I think Alabama's winning, and I'm not going to pick these bonuses.
Which I get.
I'm not going to pick these bonuses. I'm just throwing these out there, kind of do a quick thing for people who are watching and for bettors.
And two, last week, I mean, I get it. It was Georgia. Georgia's the apple of all apples. But I still don't like this Clemson offense. They haven't – last year they struggled. This year they struggled. And I'll even go and say a hot take that Clemson really hasn't had the top playmakers and that generational quarterback that they've normally had. And I think that's where they're failing in that regard. They don't have the Trevor Lawrence type.
But they've had some 5-stars that are just not developing.
They're just not developing. And I think, like you even said earlier, and we talked about it earlier, that they just ain't had the DeAndre Hopkins. They haven't had the Sammy Watkins. They haven't had those guys that just go and get the ball and just take over a game. And I think that's what's hurting Clemson right now offensively and whatnot.
All right, guys, that's going to end our show. But before we go, I do want to mention Home Field Apparel. Go to homefieldapparel.com. Use our code CSCast for a 15% discount if you're a first-time buyer. If you are not a first-time buyer and you want to help support us, go to greenvillesportsmedia.com and scroll to the bottom and hit the little icon for the link. That link will also help us as well. They are a premium licensed college apparel company. They have vintage and retro stuff, really cool stuff. Last Friday, they put out 72 new teams with coaches' jackets, retro kind of 80s style jackets. They're really cool. Check them out. You can get tons and tons of gear for your team. They have over 180 teams to choose from. So check them out. And then at the bottom there, follow us. Go College SportsCast on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, and then on X. Our handles are on the screen, J8 Spores and Brad CS Cast. Follow us on there as well. And again, go to greenvillesportsmedia.com. Check out all the articles that we write. We are doing all kinds of stuff covering ACC, covering SoCon, covering what we do here at College SportsCast. And so we're covering NFL, we're covering wrestling. If you're a wrestling fan, we have a guy that covers wrestling and writes stories for us. That would be Howie from the Real Fresh channel. So check us out at greenvillesportsmedia.com. All right, guys. Coleman says go Cats. I'll be on with you tomorrow night, Coleman, after the game. So to do the post-game show with Coleman Scott from Talking Kentucky. If you guys are not following us, shame on you. Go follow Talking Kentucky. Follow College SportsCast.
Tell Coleman that I will be back Ohio game to do. I'll be going on the road during the UK game.
Okay.
And I won't have much service going in and out. So
Yeah.
I'll be back for
I
the
know.
Ohio game to do the post game. So that'd be my first.
Yeah. So tomorrow night we're doing post game shows with Coleman Scott of Talking Kentucky. We will be on after the game. I'm gonna say that it'll be around 6:30ish or so Central Time. But hopefully we will be on somewhere around that time. The game doesn't come on to 3:45.
Coleman says we'll be 4-0 for John's first post game.
Yeah. So Coleman does a great job. Coleman and Caden do a great job.
I just hope we don't have one of Brad's weekend rants tomorrow evening.
Y'all better be ready for it. I'm gonna tell you right now. Because this is not one. This is no. I'm telling you right now. Y'all better hope I'm happy tomorrow night. That's all I know.
You better.
Go Big Blue is all I can tell you tomorrow night.
Yeah, exactly, right.
All right, guys, this has been our week 2 game day pick'ems for College SportsCast. We're going to wrap this up. Coleman, I appreciate you being on. We will be on with you tomorrow night for our Talking Kentucky College SportsCast post-game show for Kentucky football. Of course, we play South Carolina tomorrow night, and we look forward to doing that with Talking Kentucky. So we will see you post-game tomorrow night. Y'all have a good one.
Have a good one.